I did intend to do this video outside against a nice green backdrop, but I found out this morning there's a bird nested in the bird box outside, so I thought that'd be a nice little backdrop for this. Anyway, originally I intended to do a very quick short video about this, and basically just to say that this is exactly what they want. They want people to rise up, to rebel, preferably violently, so that they can just crack down and give the police more powers, and everybody who's not with the protesters will be clamouring, please controllers, get this under control, and they'll easily accept more police powers. This is a classic example of problem, reaction, solution. Problem, reaction, solution. Or if you want to put it in more psychological terms, dissonance, emotional and cognitive dissonance, which leads to a catalyst that can lead to change, which is more control. And that comes in the form of strengthening police powers, which basically just means more surveillance, more laws, more enforcement, more control, more tax, more exploitation, basically just more government interference in all aspects of life, which then leads to greater dissonance, greater disillusionment, a bigger feeling of that you're just a cog in a wheel, which then leads to the social unrest and the violent uprising, which then leads to more control and the police crack down and the strengthening of their powers. So to put it in psychological terms, the problem is disenfranchisement, which then leads to discord and catalyst for change, which is the social unrest, the violent uprising, which through a process of metamorphosis can lead to a solution, greater control, more police powers, which then leads to homogenesis, to the homogenisation of the human race, and then that creates more feeling of I'm just a cog in a wheel, disillusion, disenfranchisement. Now, if you don't want to watch any more of this video, that's fine. The message is there, quite simple. People are being played, and this is the cycle that they're using, and that they want us to rise up, they want us to react, so that they can bring in their solution, which is more powers, more control. I'm going to go on now into why this problem occurs, why the more control the powers have, the more dissonance we feel that leads to us wanting to rise up. So I'm going to concentrate on the problem. If you don't want to watch any more, that's fine. I've said what I need to say. However, I would encourage you to go to the end of the video, because I'm going to show how this cycle of events, problem, reaction, solution, fits into a much bigger picture. So I'm going to go on now to talk about disenfranchisement. And I'm not just talking about disenfranchisement in a political sense, but that dissociation, if you like, of a human being from his natural or her natural state of simply being human. And this disenfranchisement is caused by a paradox, a feeling of disempowerment, that you're just a cog in a wheel, but at the same time a feeling of empowerment, and I'm going to explain how that empowerment comes. But what they create, that paradox, what it creates is cognitive and emotional dissonance, a feeling of being disillusioned, confused and disoriented. The empowerment, as I say, is greater knowledge. I believe there is a permitted dissemination of Illuminati knowledge and knowledge of their agenda, and that's on purpose. That's not an accident. The disempowerment comes from our perceived loss of power. Obviously, that's what disempowerment means. But then you've got things like envy of the rich and the powerful, celebrities, state ownership of you, I'm going to talk about, and this dis-ease and depression which is due to a lost link with nature. So let's go back to state ownership of you. Through a growing litigation ethos and the creation of limited liability, through taking your birth certificate and trading with it as if we were just human chattel, all leads to the creation of lack of personal responsibility. They do this through the creation of your straw man, but then they do social things like break down of family bonds, and to some extent it's our own fault. We've given responsibility for the care of children and the elderly to the state. So of course the state sets up state education, state management of your body, which is healthcare, and state benefits, so-called social security. And notice that state education now goes right from nursery to adult to 18. The state owns you if you let them. Now, what about the envy of the rich and the powerful and celebrities? How does that come about, and what does it cause? Well, you've got this widening gap between rich and poor. You've then got a situation where you've got a part of society, a part of youth that are bored, apathetic, hopeless and aimless because they feel they have no potential to be able to even achieve anything like the luxury that these rich and powerful celebrities have. Then you've got the other part of the youth which are institutionalised by education. They're stressed, they're anxious, they feel pressurised to try and attain what these rich, powerful celebrities have. And how is all this done? Through control, or if you're less sceptical, manipulation of the economic boom and bust cycle. So that this feeling of loss of power over your own destiny, over your identity and your potential, is all fed by political correctness, by even at work and school, procedures, protocols, rules, laws, orders, all sorts of statutes. And we're heading towards transhumanism through our reliance on technology and the soon to be RFID chip implants. All this leads to a dehumanising effect and a feeling of loss of power over who you are, where you're going and what you can achieve. Again, feeding into disempowerment is this dis-ease and depression due to a loss of the link with nature. In the film Avatar, the tail is the link to nature. Well, we've lost that link. And how have they done that? Well, there's a left brain bias in education. Even the creation of the calendar, the Gregorian calendar, they then got control of time. And you can see this in seasonal affective disorder. There's a desynchronization of human activity from nature's cycles. Even just simple things like the time, the setting and rising of the sun. The moon cycles especially, if we're out of sync, especially affects women if they are out of sync with the natural moon cycles and have to work at specified times and can't be allowed that emotional shift as the moon goes through its cycles. They're going to feel disconnected with nature. And we can see this in the expectation that we have of food out of season. And we're seen as machines. Even the cities, the places where we live, are seen and developed and planned as machines. So then on the opposite side, you've got this empowerment, which seems to be a paradox, doesn't it? Which it is, which creates the cognitive dissonance. You've got a permitted and deliberate dissemination of knowledge of the Illuminati agenda. And this comes through deliberately contrived racial and cultural tension and conflict, use of Illuminati symbols, freedom of information laws. How come they've all of a sudden become so popular? And the blatant law-breaking, inhumanity and provocation by religious, business and governmentally entities. You've also got, they are our role models. Well, let's look at this deliberately contrived racial and cultural tension and conflict. You can see deliberate destabilising of sovereign nation states, false flag terror events, and then at a down to earth level, police harassment, just stop and search. 9/11 was your wake-up call. That signalled the start of the controlled demolition of the anglo-american twin empire. The Twin Towers coming down was symbolic in many ways. But then, what about all these Illuminati symbols that we see in music videos and everywhere we go now? They've confused me for a long time, and I've come to the conclusion that they are used so much because they awaken a suppressed apocalypse or doomsday memory which is hidden deep in the human psyche, and also to perpetuate the illusion of omnipotence and omniscience of the el-ites. And it's so blatant, stealing from personal bank accounts and pension funds, confiscation of gold and property rights, which we've not seen yet but has been done before, and retrospective laws. Their law breaking and inhumanity is just so blatant. And these are our role models. They are exemplars of inhumane and unethical behaviour. You can see this in the avarice and predatory motives and attitudes and actions of industry, of military, of the government, and also the hypocrisy of governments and politicians and celebrities and religious leaders. So you've got this great paradox, this feeling of disempowerment, disconnection with nature and nature's cycles, alongside a period of enlightenment and greater knowledge and a feeling of empowerment that comes from that. Although at first, I don't know whether it was David Icke said this first, but he quoted Jesus in saying the truth will set you free, but then he added, but first it will piss you off. And this is very true. Becoming enlightened, realising what is happening, at first makes you very angry. The key is, and I'm going to explain this in another video, I think, follow up to this part 2, what the solution is, because I'm dwelling here on the problem. I realise that, and that is negative. But in essence, the solution is getting that anger, the energy from that anger, and using it in a positive way. Because what they want you to do, they want you to get angry and then show it. Use that anger in an aggressive way. They want you to rise up. They want social unrest. They want violent uprisings. But what I want to do now is just end and show you how this small cycle of problem, reaction, solution fits into a much bigger triad of power, a bigger pyramid. And it's all about protecting the el-ites' illusion of power. And they do this through bully tactics, you know, through the family, through the mafia, through the military. And if all else fails, they'll use mercenaries. No qualms about that. There are two types of society, secular and religious, and they'll use both. In the secular society, they'll use the police. In the religious societies, it's the priestly class. The police use laws. The religious priestly class, they use a dogma. But essentially, both are usually based on a holy book. Which brings us to the top of the pyramid, and this apparent all-seeing eye. It's an illusion. Through the use of data collection, through knowledge, through listening to gossip, through all their scientific studies of human nature, of the world, of the physical world, and the way we behave and interact with it, they know how we behave. In a sense, we are like sheep because we behave in predictable ways. It's so easy for them to have power over us if we act in the predictable way that humans do. We've got to break that cycle, and they'll have no power. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you feel enlightened and therefore empowered. But don't forget, don't let them disempower you. Look at the ways that I've said they disempower you and fix them. And in that way, you won't have this conflict of feeling empowered but at the same time disempowered that creates the conflict, the cognitive dissonance that leads to disenfranchisement, a feeling of disillusionment and anger that then falls into their plan of a reaction. They need a catalyst to change this world into a one world government. Let's not give it to them.